it's all working.
Okay, so it's now recording the voice, is it?
Yeah, we're recording basically.
It's rolling.
You've got your own microphone, I've got a microphone. Yeah. Yeah, I mean this is really just for your own notes, isn't it? Just so you can listen back.
Not necessarily, just for whatever.
Because I can send you an MP3 of it.
Yes, it isn't just for my notes, it's more for sort of like just whatever, just to see what develops, and then just so we start to get a record of certain things. Which we talk about first, Dan?
I suppose it's chronology, isn't it?
So what about chronology should we start with?
bit of a big...
Basically, it's a lot of songs, isn't it? Right, we wrap that one up. Let's turn the table. Let's get the cottage pie down. Good, well, let's not worry. Like whatever happens, and just emerge if we ever come up with anything. What did you think as you were compiling chronology? Was there anything that struck you as you were putting it together? Because I'll put down to the tape is I had the idea, and I said to you, look, what you should do is you actually. Because you'd had the idea before of discography, which was all the albums you'd done previously. I said, actually, what would be really interesting if you released absolutely everything. It sounds mad egotistical. And it is egotistical in a way, but it should.
When you first said to me, I didn't actually get what you meant, did I?
No,
I went away thinking, he means release all the better stuff, all the highlights.
Yeah.
And we had another conversation, and you went, no, Dad, that's not what I meant.
Yeah, so you're just releasing everything. So the idea of that is you get a total shape of someone's career. But that does mean releasing some bad stuff as well. Like I'm on some of the stuff which is quite bad. And it's really interesting to get that whole stretch of a career, because you wouldn't normally do that with an artist unless they were massively famous. But we'll put down for the record, we came up with this idea before Dylan started releasing everything from every session, as he did just on the Cutting Edge, the latest bootleg series. So we had the idea before him. And it's just to represent everything, isn't it?
I don't know. You asked me, like, in the construction, in the first. I suppose. This over 20 years of music. It's a long time, and as you say, there's the stuff. The stuff I like and the stuff that's bad. There's no getting away from it. It's a real mixed bag. But I suppose it's kind of, in a sense, it's kind of a bit of an experiment. But I think, the first time I sort of I think it was about 2008, 2009, I mixed down all the, I thought, I've got all this stuff. I found the tape, I had the tapes, all the Tascam tapes and stuff, and the cassette tape stuff. And it's kind of weird that I had those tapes. It's like, surely, because I lost. I don't
think it's that weird because you collect everything. That's another thing about chronology.
Yes, that's what it is.
Chronology works for you because you naturally collect your own stuff. So it's a rare case of an artist being his own biggest fan as well. But that works as a concept, doesn't it? It makes it really interesting, I think,
I think earlier, I think you're right, Simon. Earlier. It must go back to the 90s. I was a bit obsessed with cataloguing things. I must have been, because I was thinking in terms of albums, even when I didn't even have any albums. I was thinking in terms of albums. Even I wasn't even recording the albums early on, but I was thinking in terms of albums and stuff, even though chronology isn't albums,
Well, I think it's fair enough to say that in one sense, your career is in response to Bob Dylan's, because he was like the artist who really inspired you. And one of the things with Dylan was put down for the record, we heard like a couple of albums early on, and then we got these books called Paul Williams Performing Artist, and it set out Dylan's career.
The trilogy of books.
And in the back of the book was a list of all the albums. This was before you could get albums easily, so we didn't have any of the albums.
Also Clinton Hayler's Behind the Shades.
No, that wasn't that important, I don't think.
I'm sure I got it from there. When you list all the basement tapes.
Maybe. But the initial impetus, in my mind, we'll come back to that.
I know what you mean now, yeah.
In the back, there's all the albums, and what we do is we'd be reading about albums before we read them, but also the first book we got only took us up to 1973, and there was then a load of albums that followed after that we hadn't even read about. So when it came to Bob Dylan, we had three ways of thinking of his albums. We had the albums we'd heard, we had the albums we'd read about in detail, and we had the albums that were listed in the back of the book that Paul Williams would address in the later volumes. And so there were albums who had like greater degrees of mystery. So some albums like House It's One Vincent, I remember reading about that. You felt you knew it really well before you heard it. other albums were just totally mysterious, just like Under the Red Sky until later. But there was a sense of and it was looking at a progression. At that time, I guess, the progression would have been about 30 years, would it? Really, about 30 years?
It would have been back in the early 90s. Well, when we got into Dylan, it was just turned 1991, 92.
92, and I think so. I think Under the Red Sky was
30 years,
Under the Red Sky was the last one. But I think when Paul Williams wrote Performing Artist, it may have been 86 or something. 86, because he talks about Brownsville Girl being the latest release.
Yeah.
So,
and he was going on about the Tom Petty tour, wasn't he?
Yeah, so at that time, it's only 20 odd years that he's thinking. But basically, we got a sense of a career, and a career that has albums that shape that career, but also what Paul Williams talks about a lot are the bootleg recordings. And those are the ones that are outside of the official releases. So that gave us a strong sense of a career, sort of an official career and an unofficial career, and all the different recordings. And it gives a sort of different shape to career. If you think, we like Paul Simon before.
Paul Simon, yeah.
And with Paul Simon, we just get the albums, that'll do. That's it. And there's not very many albums, that's it.
It's quite concise, isn't it?
Yeah. And there are Beatles bootlegs, but even with the Beatles, there wasn't the sense of like so many different hidden recordings and secret recordings. With Dylan, there was. So when Dan's doing Chronology, you're putting it out in a format which has official albums and unofficial albums. This is despite the fact that none of the albums have ever been released in the same way that Dylan's albums were released. But yeah, do you want to talk more about your strategy with the album releases?
You're really good at this. I was thinking, should we just talk about Dylan? just do a podcast.
But it's how Dylan. We can talk loads about Dylan if we want.
I know,
but that's very basic. We're just sketching an outline because that's how it's influenced. Because I just think that's one. There's no doubt that your career has been slightly in response to Dylan's.
Must be Simon.
Not must be. You know, you know, don't you?
It is. Clearly,
it doesn't mean that the work's necessarily particularly like Dylan, but it means that the shape of the career is a big influence on you.
Well, what was I mean, this is going back to the start. I mean, essentially, what it is now will be, when it's finished Chronology, when it's out there online, and. I mean, what was I, 18? Yeah, I was about 18 when I started, I'd been listening to Dylan a few years. I got the sense, and I was reading, a lot of it, as you say, was reading about Dylan. Yeah. And part of that, I think part of it, what got us into it was actually reading about it. I want to read a book on this and, check this stuff out. And I think, I just remember being amazed that you could just sort of like, just amazed, you hear Dylan and you think, even though I couldn't play guitar, I couldn't, for a few years I could not play the guitar. I was learning, But then I remember just being amazed, like, I can just press record on this thing, and then I've actually captured my own song, and then you can capture my own album. And that was the style, wasn't it? It was just really simple. I don't think there was any mystery or magic in a sense. It was really basic and simple, wasn't it? You just literally just press record.
It wasn't mystical. It wasn't magical.
It was musical. It was magical. Yeah.
I think what I'd like to know is when you did the first. So when you recorded, what was the first song you recorded? Do you think?
Oh God! Well, it was Beyond Paradise. Yeah, Beyond Paradise.
You still have the recording of that.
Yeah.
And you can't. You're playing one string or two strings.
Two strings.
Two strings badly. And it still sounds great. It's still like it's a complex lyric. It still sounds really great, and it's really the beginning. It's really weird that that's captured because we found that on a tape. In my house.
And you had the tape.
A few years ago, like 20 years after it happened.
I know, I lost
it. And the tape was falling apart, and Dan just about managed to get this on. It was on the end of Blonde on Blonde, the album by Dylan, which was the first Dylan album we got as well. So it's really tied into the beginning of Dylan there. But what I'm interested in is, when you first recorded the songs, were you thinking of putting those songs onto an album, or were you just recording songs?
I mean, I was looking at this, when I was going through all the stuff, and I was thinking, what on earth have I been doing? What on earth is this? And I think the first album, we did Shadow Songs.
Yeah.
I have a feeling that's the first album. That was 1997.
That was an album, thought of as an album.
And I think that was the first one. I had all the years, like I said, all the first 5 years or so, I was doing, learning guitar and writing songs. I had the album ideas, I had the concept.
Yeah.
I remember thinking Beyond Paradise, oh, I'm gonna, it's gonna be sort of like a big sound. It's gonna be a band taking the Herb and Dylan. I couldn't achieve that. There's no way I could achieve. There's no way I could achieve it or did achieve it.
Is that all right, by the way?
No, that's fine. It's
okay.
just
but you had the idea, even if you didn't do it, you had the idea from the beginning of doing albums.
Yeah, and I had the artwork and I had all the songs.
You did the artwork before the actual albums.
Yeah, I did. I'm just thinking about. I think that's what I did.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So that does tie with the idea that was important was the Paul Williams thing of building up albums and so on. But what I'd like to know is, so what I'm trying to get at here is how you build up the idea of a career. So how quickly did you go from the idea of a single song to the idea of an album? And then how quickly did you go from the idea of an album to the idea of lots of albums comprising a career?
That's a good question. I mean, I think to answer that, I think the first time I came up with an actual, I think the first song, 93, 94, 93 when I was playing with you, when we were like doing stuff, just putting stuff on tape and stuff, I wasn't thinking in terms of an album at all. And I think up until about when I was 94 in Scarborough, we were just recording stuff for fun.
Right.
That wasn't an album. I think actually I remember now it was 95. I had about 4 songs. The first start of Strangers Under Dark Skies.
Yeah.
I mean, the first Strangers Under Dark Skies, which I don't have anymore, was just me on the acoustic guitar on a tape recorder, and I had like the first 4 songs Strangers, and the last 4 songs would have been The Fields of Ireland.
Right.
But I couldn't quite have the idea. I was listening, I've got an album. There's an album. I didn't. I just let it fade away. I just didn't bother. I didn't bother to do anything about it because I was so underdeveloped in my thinking. And then the first time I really.
So when would that be? That was at Scarborough.
That was in 95. That was like remember I was in
Belmongate in
Guernsey. Was it Guernsey Walk?
Guernsey Walk. Okay, yeah.
Remember when we used to be on keyboard and stuff?
I do keyboards.
We did Wild Planes and that sort of stuff.
I should put out at this stage, I was only ever helping Dan. It was never a plan of me to be involved in any way, was it? I was just go in, play keyboards. I was naturally a brilliant keyboard player.
I enjoy that stuff.
Yeah, you can hear on Chronology. I wasn't very good. But no. So then you had you saw you had enough songs for an album, which I guess is the way most people would do it. But you hadn't planned an album specifically. You just saw it come together. You thought it's a possibility, and then you disbanded it. When did you come up with the idea for an actual album?
I mean, I think it was actually I think it was 2001.
What?
It was 2001 2001 I first came up with the idea of actually, I've got some albums.
I mean, you did albums before 2001.
No, I did, but I mean, your answer to like cataloguing them. Like
no, I mean, when did you first think of putting songs in? When did you first think, I've got an album? Because you said you nearly had an album with Fields of Ireland and the other 4 songs, and then you didn't have an album. When did you first think of putting songs together as an album? Like, you talked about Beyond Paradise. When did you first start coming up with those ideas?
I think actually, but when I first properly did it was 97, and I know this because I've been going through the old tapes and looking at what I was doing. And the first one was 97 in Luton. Yeah. And I came up with I did like a sort of a Dylan cover album, just me on acoustic guitar.
Right.
And there's about 12 songs on there or something, just me on acoustic guitar on a tape player. And you can see it's a recorded album.
It's like an album.
It works like you can see I've thought about the arrangements.
But what's weird about this is, in 96 I came to visit you, and I sort of did my own album with you.
That was I think it was 97.
No, it was 96.
Was it?
I think so. Maybe 97, but I think it was 96.
I thought it was early. I think it might have been. I don't know. It's interesting. It was about that time.
But the idea then was I was doing my own album, so I think you must have had the idea of doing an album, because why would I be? It was just an album for fun.
And the thing about that time, the first time thinking about it wasn't. It's weird. It's just when you look back, you think. We're not getting to the point where we get lost in vain.
I know because surely if I was doing the album in 97, Dan. I mean, certainly. What time?
It was about the time I did the Dylan covers. 96, 97, and at the same time I did a tape.
So that was summer 97, was it?
Yes, it was early. I think it was early summer 97.
Yeah.
And because I remember I wrote like on Softball Train and The Tempest and stuff like that. I was working on those. That's the only reason I'm thinking this, because I'm looking back at the songs thinking, I couldn't remember when it was written.
But don't you think you would have had the idea for doing an album before that? Because I came up and then the idea was that I'd do like a little album.
Yeah, we're going to do, what was it, Blowing Up Hurricane?
Yeah, which is that's a stupid song that goes like that.
Yeah.
So surely
That was then.
I know, like it can't have been that the idea was for me to do an album before you'd even thought of doing an album.
I'll be honest, I think it was the time I did the Dylan songs, that little album, and I did the album with you. This is it. I think I was coming together with the idea of actually recording an album, which is why I wanted to get your album now, because you see, I was developing a bit. I wanted to
Do you think that's true?
I think it was.
Okay.
I had ideas before, but I never actually thought, right, I'm going to sit down and record an album. I mean,
Right.
96, there's nothing.
There's
nothing.
So when
95, there was a few songs which didn't come about.
yeah.
It was only 97 I started, really 97 I really started to think, I want to,
Seems a bit odd, doesn't it? Yeah, I suppose so. So
Yeah.
maybe like trying out some stuff.
I mean, I got this, I remember I had this tape called Howling Through the Night, which is quite
That's a
ironic.
personal thing, that's not appropriate for us.
Yeah, and then what I did was, that was probably the first original album, because it was a cassette tape with two sides, and I'd gone through and recorded it. You could see it was all, I got the tape, and you could see I was like, trying to like, you could see I thought about the arrangements, they were all recorded in one session, it was properly done, for that time.
So what time was that?
That was about the same time as, maybe before, yes, that was the first one, it was before you came after Luton.
Okay.
It was Howling Through the Night, I think, and I think I did the Dylan covers, maybe just before or after you went. Because we were going through Dylan songs, and I probably got a bit inspired to do a few Dylan songs, like This Wheel's on Fire and stuff.
Yeah.
I think the first proper album was Howling Through the Night.
Howling Through the Night, that's interesting.
97.
That's lost, that's not really an album now, is it?
It's not an album in the sense that all the songs were written in '97, because I was taking songs like that I'd written the previous few years, and I was you could see I finally thought, I better get these songs down before they're gone, and that's just to get a record of them.
But you recorded them in one go then, did
Yeah,
you? How
yeah.
did you actually record them in a session for an album?
I mean, it's called Howling Through the Night, but I think it was in the halls of residence, and it was late at night, and I didn't want to make too much noise, so I was trying to keep it down. So it's kind of a strange title for it, really.
Well, it will have been then before I came up, because I think I came up in the summer just as everyone was sort of leaving. Isn't that right? And Paul was we were on summer holidays, and you wouldn't have gone back to that halls of residence after that, would you? The next year you'd have lived in.
I was only there for a few months or so.
You're there for like your first year, aren't you, in the halls of residence?
Yeah.
Then you moved into a house with people, didn't you?
Yeah.
Your second year.
Yeah, and that was the start of Chronology, really. That was. I think that's the first idea was just to sort of as you say, the fun of recording it, and eventually it was just to have a document of the songs for my own.
So had you written The Tempest then when you came up with that album?
Yeah, I did a really.
So that's where the title comes from.
If you hear the first version, it's got the line "sheep" in it.
All right.
It's got my favourite sheep line, and it's quite a bad Dylan interpretation of Dylan personification of a song.
Yeah. But you've done that thing where you've taken like a line from a song and made it the title of an album.
Yes. Of course, Howling Through the Night.
Probably why I did it. Yeah, that's why I said Tempest, yeah.
You look back and you think, God, that's so bad, but what do you do?
Well, it's not really, but it's just like you're thinking of it in terms of an album in sort of like classic terms. You take a line from one of the songs, and that's a sort of classic way to assemble an album, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then Shadow Songs was done. But I suppose one of the things we're kind of forgetting here is like the emphasis wouldn't be on albums. The emphasis at this stage would be maybe more on demos.
Mm.
Demos would have been the thing.
I think the first time we probably thought about when you said to me, Dan, you got to take this more seriously, man. You got to get a proper tape recorder, get a Tascam, which you were absolutely right, because it's like, what was I doing with tape recorders and cassette tape recorders, And then the first one was it Pop Symphony with Shadow Songs. Remember we worked on the little clips.
Yeah. No, we didn't do a Pop Symphony at that stage. We were just doing Pop Symphony came much later. All we were doing then was just doing different songs. We just had the idea of having like a load of great little pop songs, and then on the other side.
Oh, I thought we had. Yes, you're right.
Pop Symphony is a lot later, where I said put all those songs together and some other ones and make it into like a selling thing.
Yeah, you're right.
It was like a proper album. It wasn't Pop Symphony. It was like it was like a,
just have like 1 minute clips of all these pop songs.
Yeah, no, it wasn't 1 minute clips. It was doing a collection of little songs with no clipping at that stage. I'm pretty sure it was just on one side you'd have like 3 or 4 or 5 pop songs, and on the other side, the epic Above the Taj Mahal.
Because it was Above the Taj Mahal, The Tempest, and I can't remember some other song, you know, I don't know, Behind Closed Doors or something.
Yeah. In fact, later on, I think we came up with the idea. In fact, that's not right. We just had Shadow Songs normally. It was much later that we came up with the idea of Pop Symphony. Well, I came with the idea of Pop Symphony, actually. Let's clear that. To sort of like put all those little songs together, because you had a lot of great little songs that together might be a bit lightweight. So if you put them all together in one massive song, it's like a genius, like so much melody. And that goes on the other side of Above the Taj Mahal, I think, which was always a problem, because Above the Taj Mahal was such an epic song. It's a bit weak, because initially we do things like we'd have a set list which runs something like The Tempest, Dancing Gypsy Child, Above the Taj Mahal, and that always felt a bit weird.
That was the first proper venture, and also having you involved as well, I think. It felt like, you remember the time, it felt like we were working on a proper album, didn't it? Even though the results were terrible, it weren't good, you know.
Well, they were, and actually you can tell, because I like a lot of pop music, and like actually the influence.
Your instincts were great though.
I'm a producer there. My instincts are great. My harmonica playing and my backup singing isn't great though, unfortunately. It does slightly mar the album. But the songs are shaped in a way which I think I shaped the songs a fair bit. And even Above the Taj Mahal, I think it was my idea for the different voices, wasn't it? Like all the different voices coming in.
I think you had a few ideas. I remember you saying, you should quicken the Tempest up. And I think you might have even come up with the idea of an instrumental in Above the Taj Mahal, I'm not sure.
Well, yes, initially I think what I wanted to do was, because the one of the things that influenced Above the Taj Mahal is, I played down a tape of Qawwali music by Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan, which is very chant-based and not like a normal song. And there's a lot of build in that. And what I wanted to do, if you remember, was to just build up forever, go da 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 da. I wanted to build up forever. Like that was my idea.
Didn't we have a 20-minute version?
Yes, yes. So I was like, we should make it like an incredibly long version. We just have a huge build-up.
I can't remember this song.
And then the orgasmic release of high up. Now also, it's my idea to have all the voices, because I figured with the Tascam, you've got 4 different volumes, only 4-track, but you could do our voices on it, and we could get like an effect of a multi-choir with the Tascam. We couldn't do on a normal one, and I wanted that effect to come in. But yeah, my idea was to make it longer, da 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 da, to build it up, I wanted to make it very avant-garde.
I don't think some of this stuff you're saying, I'm not sure. You probably told me like a few months ago, and I've forgotten.
No, I'd forgotten about it until you said, wasn't it my idea to make it instrumental? I thought, yeah, my idea was to build it up and go da 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 da. Remember, I was telling you, I was getting really carried away, because I was like, we can make this as long. Basically, my idea was, if you look at Dylan, Dylan makes like Saadad Lady Lola, it's like a whole side of an album.
Yeah,
I think my feeling was,
yeah.
But that was an album which had like 4-sided vinyl, and so it'd only be 30 minutes. My idea was almost like, I think, maybe not quite as good as this, make it like 30 minutes long. I just make it like 20 minutes, like make it longer than that, and make it really build up, da 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 da, because I wanted the build up all the time, da 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 da, and then finally, high up it for the final chorus.
That was one of the early ideas of doing really long stuff, wasn't it? Really, you just listen to it, it just goes on.
Well, it's an epic song,
and you just lose.
Well, it sounded really magical, and I figured that if you got them waiting for the release just long enough, it'd be crazy. I mean, it was pushing it a bit. But I also thought you may as well be experimental. It seemed like quite an experimental song, Above the Taj Mahal. It's quite an epic song. It seemed quite an unusual thing to put on a pop on. But yeah, no, actually, just think about that. That was my idea. I was like, we'll wait. Just keep on waiting till it. And then at the end, I just wanted those choruses to go on forever.
Yeah.
Didn't I? I was like, just keep on singing.
I remember that. Now because the versions I did later on over the years and stuff. They became just like a 4 or 5 minute song.
Yeah.
And it's so different. It's so sort of. Really, the original was the best
one. I'll put the disclaimer in here. All of these memories are not 100% sure.
Yeah,
so I think so. I think I did that with the thing.
Rings.
I think I did. I'm really pretty sure that my idea was for the choruses to just go on forever. That was an idea. I'm pretty sure. It rings true for the build up musically as well. That rings true to me as well. Certainly for the choruses, I wanted the choruses to go on a long time. In that sense, I was shaping that song, because I don't think you were really thinking in those terms. I was going, just go on forever. Just keep on singing the chorus. Yeah, and I think, it's more hazy, but I think on the other songs, I may have influenced a bit the patterning of it a bit, but not as much. But they're very good pop songs. A lot of that, like "Don't Get Trapped" is a very good pop song. They're just like perfect pop songs. Those. It's very Beach Boysy. That I really like those songs. You could do an amazing job in the studio. There's probably if you got "Don't Get Trapped." Gotta keep moving down.
It could be really,
Holy Father,
with the clapping.
Help me out.
That's.
And it also fits in really well with Above the Taj Mahal into that high up here high. In fact, I actually could have made it a bit more organic, a bit of hand clapping. Now you mentioned that, getting into producer mode. It could have been.
Yeah, it's like, because we're just there fumbling through with this Tascam stuff. If we just, it's this, you sort of think that, if we'd had, I don't know, if we'd gone to a studio with someone and with musicians, it would have made something really good, but it's what it was, wasn't it? It's captured that moment in time, isn't it? And it's good in a sense, isn't it? You sort of listen back and go,
They're amazing songs. I mean,
the story behind it.
My harmonica doesn't help, but my backing singing doesn't help, but they are amazing songs. I mean, the songs are really, like, oddly good, considering that was really the first time you really built an album from scratch in that way, isn't it? So the songs are really good, and they're really, it's.
So I think to answer your question, I think go back to your question. I think it was Howling for the Night, then it was Shadow Songs. Howling for the Night, you can see I was sort of like thinking in those Shadow Songs. We really, we really had a concerted effort to do something.
Yeah, but I'm still not 100% sure whether we were aiming for an album or to get a demo tape sent off.
I think my recollection is we had both.
Well, I think also for a demo, we had often the idea was to just send off an album, wasn't it?
I mean, those 1 minute songs was a demo, wasn't it?
It's a later idea. It's not really anything to do with Shadow Songs, except that Shadow Songs gave the idea of like a big epic and smaller songs beside it. Yeah. But in actual fact, I thought it was much later, and it's all sorts of songs, including some of them from Shadow Songs. But yeah,
I remember I don't know if this is right, Simon. I remember an idea you had one side of the cassette tape was all but the 1 minute songs.
Yeah.
The other side you turn over and it was Above the Taj Mahal, The Tempest, and another song.
Maybe it was that. Maybe that's right.
That's what I remember. I remember I can't remember the ideas behind it.
My memory a bit more was that you just have Above the Taj Mahal on one side, and I think this is a false memory actually now, but you'd have like all the pop symphony on one side and then also Above the Taj Mahal. But actually I think maybe one idea was as a demo to send off all of the pop symphony songs and Above the Taj Mahal, like a 1-2 hit.
It's interesting because it's not something we've ever talked about.
No, because
it's hard to sat in front of a microphone, we're like, hold on a minute.
Well, I don't think we really thought it'd be reviewed. But actually, that would make sense as sort of like a way to showcase what you could do. Yeah. There's all the pop stuff, and then there's one like epic song. What I kind of want to do is re-record Shadow Songs.
I know. We could do it now, couldn't we?
In a really sort of natural, like acoustic. Yeah. Gotta keep moving down the track. Yeah. And when the tempo's still work, we'll just do it like really like happy, folky.
I know what you mean. I'm remembering that, that acoustic jingle jangle sort of easy going feel.
But actually, that wasn't the feel I was thinking of on the album at all. But now it is. Now I think that would work. I think we're going more sort of Beach Boysy, like. I mean, the great songs. I always really like that song.
It was a highlight, that album, wasn't it? It was a highlight. It was really highlight.
It's real.
Even though it was,
there's such good pop writing. And Above the Taj Mahal is such an epic song. And in fact, actually, the thing was, we were clearly too ambitious with Above the Taj Mahal because we were trying to replicate the effect of like a massive celestial choir, which was beyond our remit. What do you like to say? Not on my pay grade. Above my pay grade, what do you say?
That's above my pay grade.
Right? I don't know. And but you know the point, it's beyond us. But actually, if we've done Above the Taj Mahal more in keeping with the rest of the album, like a bit sort of clapping, one man's task, like sort of like sitting round and clapping, doing it, would have fitted on the album well.
Could have been.
Yeah.
Because obviously, I mean, the album I've got, I've got, which will be on the Chronology, is the recordings I did over the next 2 years. Just put them together. They were more developed versions. Like the Tempest with Chris on drums, and then they were sort of they were more. 99, I was getting to more. 99 is the one I think wasn't that. I think it was one I thought, oh, hold on, I've actually got a few songs here. Why didn't I actually document them?
Yeah, and also you work like Chris was like a proper musician, so it's useful I imagine it's very useful to be there with someone who could be a drummer, and that'd shape songs, and that'd give you more of a sort of It would seem more professional. I mean, really, you were going, you moved to Workshop to do the music.
Yeah.
That's what you did. You kind of forget. You didn't move to Workshop for a laugh. You moved to Workshop?
I was going to go. I mean, uni had gone balls up. You know, if that's a phrase.
It's normally
uni, you know.
It's normally tits up, but I mean, you know, it doesn't matter. Does it? Balls, tits, whatever. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. But so yeah, I mean, that was it. You know, uni had gone wrong, so I just thought, yeah, I'm just going to do it. I'm going to go and get a band. That was the plan. It was to get a band together. We would go out and play in Nottingham. We'd do gigs. It'd be like, you know, doing all these songs and stuff, and you know, that was the plan. That was it. You know, that was the big sort of like move. You know, but obviously it didn't happen. You know. But yeah, so
that was the plan. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, so you can see. I suppose, you know, when you start, you know, like with Shadow Songs and the earlier stuff, it was sort of like, you know, I think it was back. I mean, it was back then. You know, it's like, you know, when I later said, "Oh, you know, I'm going to quit, Simon. I'm going to quit next year," and you just go, "No, Dan, you're not." I mean, it's like one of those things, isn't it? I'd started something earlier, and sometimes I didn't really want to do it, but you just do it. You just do what you do, don't you?
It built up, I think.
And you
quite...
pay the tax man after.
Yeah. But no.
Simon's thinking, God, getting down on tape. Why did we suggest this?
Well, actually, it's been the first time we ever did an interview, a proper interview. This is more relaxed. First time we did a proper interview. It was interesting because we were treating the interviews are part of the idea of sort of like a counter career, aren't they, as well? Because we treated, you know, we did like a serious interview with you. When was that? 2005 or 2006 before I went to uni?
I think it was late 2006, and we recorded it on camera, didn't we?
Can't have been that late. Yeah, maybe it was the summer, maybe just before I went to uni or something, was it? Yeah.
It was, yeah. You remember we had the Dill pictures behind us,
yeah,
guitar
and we did it like,
in the kitchen.
So we did like a proper interview, looking back on your career and your song. It wasn't so much looking back, actually, more, but there was looking back, so it was like a proper interview. So we treated it like a proper career then. That was
it's a shame that got lost, isn't it?
Unfortunately, that got lost. It was weird because we recorded it, and then just when we said, "Oh, that's enough for the interview," the tape just cut out at that moment, didn't it? The camera just faded, cut out. It was brilliant. But it was taped over by Daniel's sister's then husband, who decided to record a wedding instead.
It was a good wedding.
So we had to watch. We've had to watch this wedding, but there's no sign. I mean,
years later, it's like, what's
the
wedding?
It's weird watching someone else's wedding.
I wanted to reminisce over.
Well, it wasn't even a wedding. It was like it's like Christmas Day.
I'll be honest, though, just at the pub.
They're at the pub, and then it was just, we should really be watching it anyway. We had to watch it because
we watched all of it though.
We watched it because we thought we might turn up with the interview, but really, we're just watching someone else's home movies.
Our self-indulgence didn't really pay off, did it? Really?
No, well, it's unfortunate. I feel bad that we saw that. I'd say you probably risked it, but we just wanted to see. Just wanted to see this interview, this fabled interview. But that's got lost. But that was an interview in which you adopted.
I was such an idiot, wasn't I? I was talking absolutely rubbish.
You trying to be like Dylan, which is mysterious in interviews.
You just look back, don't you think, what an idiot I was, you know. You look back, don't you, the times, you know.
Yeah. I mean, you just do. You just look back and just think, God, this is bad.
It's amazing you didn't just stop the interview and go, look down, just talk normally. And just
I think I did. I think I tried to a bit.
But you sort of looked at me like,
But sort of I sort of knew that's how you sort of doing it. Like, to us, that was the idea of what an interview was. I can't quite recall the tenor of the interview, like how we sort of had it planned. But it's, I mean, I did think, I think at one point you said, you acted, I think there was a question you'd given me, and you acted a bit like, fools always asking me that question. I was like, hang on, you gave me that.
Sorry about that, man.
I don't know, I might be exaggerating, maybe you didn't quite give me that question, but like the feel of it was like a Dylan interview, which is quite mysterious, but increasingly, what we've done is, we'll talk about this as well actually, what we've done is we've kind of gone away from the idea of creating mystery by lying and mythologizing, and just creating mystery by just actually not saying too much. So when Chronology comes out, the plan is to just be on a website which doesn't even necessarily have titles, just pictures of all the albums, like 90 odd albums, and you click on it and then you get into the music, and it's up for everyone else to build a story. And before that we had weird ideas of how to sort of treat the idea of Dan's career being a sort of separate sort of like
Songs from Another World.
Songs from Another World. So the idea of Dan, so we had the idea that in an alternate universe, Dan was a very successful singer-songwriter, and Dylan and Leonard Cohen were sort of like menial figures, sweeping floors or stripping for tips. We went a bit weird. In that, we put Kylie Minogue in for no reason. But we didn't really need to do that. We realised the best way to actually do it is just actually let it be what it is, which is a career that's treated like seriously as a career, and all the songs put out, then taken, just put out there, then let people decide themselves. And
I mean, it has to be said that I don't. I think even if I'd been left on my own devices the last few years with this stuff, I'm not sure it probably wouldn't have come about. I mean, you've kind of like.
I think it's too
made
big.
Sense of it. I think you've made sense of it.
It's too big-headed an idea.
It was too big-headed for me to go. You know what? I'm going to release everything I've done. It's like, what the hell? Who wants to listen to that? But I don't know.
I mean, you were heading towards it because you wanted a discography of all your albums.
Yeah.
But then it's that thing where sometimes, like, I think my instinct would be towards Dan would be to go, oh, come on, like, maybe go towards the good stuff. And then at a certain point I realised it's an interesting thing. Sometimes it's worth just going completely against your instincts and going, just flipping the other way and seeing if you think that idea works. And then suddenly when you think, oh, actually, if you release everything you do, that's really interesting. And that's really, it's just interesting. That's all. It just seemed like an amazing idea to just put everything out there so people can really explore it. And it's the sort of thing you'd only really do if you were massively successful and people would listen to.
Because they know who you
thing.
are, they know what you do.
There's like a crazy interest.
Yeah.
But it's much more interesting to do that if you don't know what everything is. And it creates like it just creates a work of art almost from all those albums, because it's really baffling because it's monumental, but there's no explanation of it. So it's like how interesting Bob Dylan would be. Imagine if you heard about Bob Dylan. Sometimes you get this in real life. It's interesting. You hear about someone, you don't know anything about them, and you go, oh my, this is like a really important cultural figure. Like if you hadn't heard of Steven Spielberg and you suddenly go, I can't believe how much stuff Steven Spielberg's done. E.T., everyone knows about it, but you'd missed it. You know, as an extreme example, it's really interesting to then get this monumental career that's sort of like.
I mean, it's you know, I'm kind of, you know, where I'm at with this. It's what I've done, and you know, if it's, you know, I don't know, it's just what I did and I'm doing, and I'm kind of happy just to like put it on the website, and you know what, if, like, just move on and just do it.
Hey man, sometimes you gotta just put stuff out there, pay the tax man later. No, but you're right.
What I'm trying to say is, like, in 10 years' time, and it's just, you know, some people have looked at it and that's it. I'm kind of happy with that. You know what I mean?
Well, what else can we do, Dan?
It's a good journey.
What we don't want to do is like really over it. Well, basically, it's just something you put out there because it's so crazy. Because we put out, like, Dan's also doing something called Anthology, which is, I'm really speaking into the tape here, even though we
it's good.
It doesn't matter. Yeah, it's fine. But what Dan's doing is he's doing an album called Anthology, which is all of his best songs. It's about 50 songs arranged on 5 rough thematic categories. They're actually interchangeable, but just a way of presenting 50 songs, and that's all great songs, nothing bad, and that makes sense to sort of present someone's career. And you know, a single greatest hits album will present someone's career. Chronology is sort of outside of that. It's all about someone's career, but it doesn't make sense in terms of building a career because it's so strange. So all you can do is put it out there and trust an instinct that it's so different and so odd and will be so beautifully done that it will strike a chord somewhere. But we can't really.
You can't just get it. It is a bit of a weird thing, isn't it?
It's nothing to almost stake your hopes on. You have to do it almost for the sake of creating pure art.
I'm not trying to like sound self-indulgent. It's just like because I kind of think, I mean, who wants to listen to this? You know, a lot of that stuff. Who wants to listen? Where's the interest? It's like I'm no one basically. I'm a nobody. You know what I mean? It's like,
of course, that's why it has to work. I mean, the thing is, it's this thing where if you were like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of an example. If you were, I don't know, Ed Sheeran's too famous now. Like,
yeah, he's a big star.
But if you were someone who was, I don't know, Tears for Fears.
Oh yeah.
If you were Tears for Fears and you released everything you'd done, it's really stupid, right? Because of Tears for Fears. if you're Bob Dylan and you release everything you've done, it's really interesting because you're Bob Dylan. But if you're Dan Pettitt and you release everything you've done, it's really interesting as well. It's more interesting than Tears for Fears because you don't know anything. So the impact of it is gained from the fact that it's ludicrous for someone to do this. It's like if someone erects a statue to themselves in the middle of a town.
Yeah.
That's really interesting if they're nobody. Not that you're nobody, but you're not discovered. The point is also, I should probably put this out there, the point is the belief is that this music is brilliant. Not all of it on Chronology, but the best music is brilliant. So it's not like a joke, like it's not like sort of like, and there's really nothing behind it. The point is, as of course, there's loads of brilliant music out there. It's luck is a huge factor in why people are successful, and so it's looking at that, and also motive. Like Dan hasn't really gone and he hasn't been like Dylan, massively moving somewhere to try to move forward his career. So it's sort of a look at that, but it's like someone erecting a statue to themselves or behaving in that way, and it's really interesting to do that. But also it's because we're saying this is valuable in a musicological sense. This is as valuable as, say, Neil Young. That's a big claim to make, but we'll make it as valuable as Neil Young. And Neil Young is someone where you could release everything.
He did a lot of albums, didn't he? I've looked at
He did, and also people would, you could release everything. So you're saying, well, this is someone who's like Neil Young. You're not getting any of the story, any of the history, and you're just presenting it. But still, when you go through, it's not that it shouldn't be worthwhile. It should be worthwhile. It's just you'll have to make the concessions you make to a major artist, which is to go,
not all of it's great.
Yeah, or the concessions you make to Dylan. So Bob Dylan has released albums which clearly, if another unknown artist tried to release them, would never be released.
That is great, isn't it?
I mean, that's one of the great things about it. Yeah, and that's good that you then behave in the same way.
I know.
When this stuff comes out.
I know. Well, sometimes it wasn't intentional.
No, yeah.
This is going to be great.
No, but there's also a lot of stuff that's like we don't know what we're doing. There's joke stuff. Basically, the point we're saying is, it's interesting from an artistic point of view to have someone who isn't a commercial artist to behave as if he's massively
he is a commercial
successful.
artist, yeah.
But also, the work itself should be really interesting. And there's something more interesting about going through someone's albums, and there are bad songs and good songs, and there's a lot of variety, than it is to just presenting absolutely the best of someone. And that's something that's...
It's that thing, isn't it? If you're an artist, the norm, the thing to do is to present the best side of yourself.
Of course,
This is me. Everything's done perfectly, properly polished. It's completely concise. This is the best of me. It's a show, like a showcase, almost like and which is understandable because it comes down to entertainment. But I think that I'm okay with this chronology thing is because it's like as a whole. It's like, I think it works better than, if you took one album and go, well, that's not a great album, but you think, but if you listen as a whole, you just look, the website I do, you just click through and just go whatever you want to do, wherever you want to just see however you want to see it.
Yeah.
And then that's, rather than, sort of presenting, a form of yourself, a fake side of yourself, when there's, You know what I mean?
I do know what you mean, and that's really true. It's a very true representation. Also, you should put out on this website, there's no guide as to what songs you should go or where you should go.
It's up to the viewer, isn't it?
So it's pot luck. So I mean, you could just get some rubbish, and you go, well, what is this? So you could get amazing stuff. And the point is, this is where it's different from Dylan. When Dylan does stuff, there's an idea of a narrative, and Dylan's got albums which are regarded as being good, and albums which are regarded as being bad. Now, at the time, they may not have been regarded in the same way, but history has established a certain hierarchy amongst those albums. With this website, you're not going to have that. You're going to have a clear progression. One of the things that helps this work is that Dan's done album covers for them all, and they tell the story visually. So you can tell you become more professional as it goes along. So the story, you don't need to put down, although it's called Chronology, which also tells you it's going to be in order, but you don't need to put down the dates. You can just look and see how it gets more professional. And so people can see the story from that way. And we can tell the story in such an interesting way without having to use any words almost.
I think you're right.
You look at the page and you get the story straight away, which is someone gets more professional. And then you go, well, what's in there? So they'll expect the later albums to be better, and they will be. And it's just a way for people to explore it. But it's really interesting. It's so interesting. It's so valuable to have out there. But we're just going to have to trust. We may do a lot of publicity because we've got some crazy ideas, or we may not. But we'll just put it out there and see what happens.
I think it's that's it, isn't it, Simon? You do something you do something you enjoy and you want to do it, and you do it for whatever reason. And you know what I mean? Why does anyone do anything? You know what I mean? It's like you have to you have to try and do. I don't know really.
Well, you do.
If no one, if like you know, like as I said, like in 10, 20 years time, I'm just somewhere going, oh, you remember when I released all those songs, Simon? Oh yes, you know, but that's great as well, isn't it? Really?
Of course you do. It's much better.
I don't really want.
Also, it's one of those
it's
one of those ideas. Once you've had it, you sort of have to do it because how can you not? So, for instance, Dan doesn't play a lot of like gigs by himself, like hardly ever. But recently, he performed at quite a big venue in Saltburn. Got like nearly 100 people in. Got like a lot of money on the gate, which he gave to charity. So suddenly he gave this like
I'm
big.
glad you mentioned that.
Yeah, gave it no, he did, and he also like sold CDs and gave the product charity. It all went to charity. Yeah. But the point is, suddenly he did this thing that was sort of like didn't really fit the rest of the career arc. It's really interesting to just do a big gig because in Saltburn there's an idea that you sort of build up and you help people, you do favours, and Dan helps people and so on. But you build up to a certain stage where you can put on a gig. But Dan just took over the centre, paid for it himself, just set out to do it, and then just did it. And raised a lot of money for charity. It was a big gig. Lots of people went along. It was like a massive success. But it was a success that sort of you couldn't really see coming. But once the idea has come up to do that big show, you've got to do it because it's so interesting to do. And once you come up with the idea of Chronology, like, well, you're going to do it, aren't you? It's chickening out not to do it. So you put it out there and see what happens. Yeah. Why not? It's interesting. You've got all that stuff, and you'd want that stuff. The other, I don't know if we're running out of time before we. But
no, that's fine. I'll have to. I think the cottage pie's doing fun. I'll pop up in a minute and.
Okay.
But just for this, I'm cooking a hearty cottage pie. My speciality.
It's laced with LSD, which gives it a real kick.
Yeah, it gives a bit of spice.
It's a real kick. Yeah. No. What was this?
You were saying about the you get to like with the Earthbeat gig I did. It got to such a point where I want. It's the night there. You've got to go through with it. It's all organised.
No,
it's like Chronology.
Else
you might. It's interesting. You get it out there. I think that was your train of thought.
No, it wasn't.
You get to a certain point where you.
It doesn't matter how. This will just have to be a pause here as I try to get the train of thought back.
While we do this, shall I play a song?
No, Dan.
I've got a new song. Do you want to hear it?
Are you serious? What are you doing now, Dan?
You like this one?
Is it a joke song or is it a real song? Oh, I know what you're going to do. Okay, yeah, go.
I'm out of tune. Hold on. Just get the guitar tune.
Why do you... I don't think that's good for your back. That chair's...
My back's gone.
The chair's so low down. Do you not put it up? I got a calling from the great beyond. Wanker! Oh, it's good. Do that.
Oh, I love it.
Do that Dylan song about someone in the rain. This will be good.
Yeah, this is one of my favourite ones. Yeah.
Nobody feels anything.
Bit dragging, isn't it?
Tonight, as I stand inside the rain.
You get to sing along.
Everybody knows baby's got new clothes, but lately I've seen her ribbons and her bows have fallen from her curls. Well, she takes just like a woman, and she breaks just like a woman, and she makes love just like a woman, but she breaks just like a little.
That was beautiful, wasn't it?
No. Oh, I can't. It makes me laugh so much. That whamming.
Thanks. But anyway, I just thought, just give you time to compose yourself and
Yeah, well,
get back
there's no chance of me remembering that now. What about another? Do you know any songs about man? Do you know any of them? Do you know If You Believe? If You Believe? No, you don't know that.
I don't know. I'm just making up the chords. How's it go? Do you know the verse? Can you sing the verse?
Yeah, more or less. Here's a little adjective for the never believer. Yeah, 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 yeah. Here's a little ghost for the offering. I forgot, I like to sing two guitars. Yeah. Here's a truck stop instead of St. Peter. Yeah. Little Andy Coughlin's gone wrestling. Yeah. Hey, Andy, are you goofing on
Just like old times.
Hey, Andy, are you goofing on empty? Tell me, are you locked in the punch? Hey, Andy, are you spoofing on Elvis? Are we losing touch? If you believe, they put it down on the moon. Down on the moon. If you believe, there's nothing up their sleeve, and nothing is cool.
Guitar playing.
That's just not
terrible. It's
not
what a great showcase.
It's not the tune. But do you know any of those dance songs? Any of those ones?
Yeah.
What about?
Do you know Down in the Mirror?
Yeah. Well, we know the chorus.
Do you know the verse to it?
How's it going? I'm looking at the Dan in the mirror. I'm hoping he will make a change.
Come on, change.
This could be
We've done Down on the Moon and Down in the Mirror. There's some other classics. If you want to listen to the album, we've done an album called It's Dan's World.
It's a Dan's World.
And there's also When a Dan Loves a Woman. What other ones are there, Simon? There's a few, isn't there? It's Raining Downs.
It's Raining Downs. Hallelujah.
Of course, there's the two singles we just did, Down in the Mirror and Down on the Moon.
There's maybe the Dan in Me, which is
Dan in Me.
We don't talk about that one.
The
Dan in Me.
song.
The Dan in the Long Black Coat. We have a lot of Dylan songs.
The Dan in the Long Black Coat.
Dan in the Long Black Coat. And I'm waiting for the Dan.
I'm waiting for Dan.
In fact, can you sing that one?
I'm waiting for the Dan.
Yeah, okay.
But listen back. Let's get what we do.
Okay, go. Up through Lexington, 125. Feel sick and dirty, more dead than alive. I'm waiting for my Dan.
Waiting for my Dan.
$24 in my hand. What's next? Hey, white boy. It's because I've been whamming again.
We've covered that one.
We've done that one. That's good.
But it's just just to break it up, because it's kind of what I mean. This just for the listeners. This is the first time we've actually sat down and never really recorded a conversation. We're actually talking about this stuff. It's a bit weird, isn't it? If you look at sort of all those years and stuff, like it's hard for me to.
That's weird because we don't
need to remember.
We don't remember what the fuck was going on with Shadow Songs. That's really. We need to listen back to that because it actually tells us what happened.
Yeah,
That's the useful thing.
it's really. I do find it interesting to hear what the way you sort of make sense of it is by sort of like, because I can remember stuff, and it's just like. I think joking aside, I think as a whole, I think yeah, I'm happy to put that out there and it's done, and people can make of it what they will. They can like it or dislike it and stuff, and you know what I mean. It is what it is, isn't it? But it's good that you can just pick and choose, isn't it? Rather than just you're stuck with one album. You know what I mean? You're stuck with one album, you know, and you got to, because an album's already an antiquated thing, isn't it, Simon?
Well, everyone still kind of releases albums, don't they? It's a way of bundling together songs. But yeah, I mean, it is interesting. And one of the interesting things about Chronology is there's bootleg albums there's albums and then bootleg albums. So there's a kind of an indication there as to the quality. The thing about the bootleg albums is they have a certain type of longer, more extravagant title. So do you want to give some of the what was some of the bootleg titles you've come up with?
All this stuff like He's Still the Master Here, My Friend.
Yeah.
Shaman on the Rampage.
Shaman on the Rampage. Sort of like, like famous Dylan one is Guitars Kissing in the Contemporary Fix. Is there not one that's a bit like that?
Oh God, what are these? Some other ones. I can't remember.
Actually, they're not as distinct from the main
Not
album.
as distinct as we thought.
I thought they were all going to be like Flipside, Marzipan, and
yeah, they are. I can't
Electric
remember.
Radiator.
I've just literally been doing it.
They
so
do
I
have a
can't
different
remember.
feel to them, though, and hopefully people will.
The albums are a bit more like Strangers Under Dark Skies, or like
a bit more obvious, a bit more sort of like, well, not
Straight
obvious,
up.
just sort of like straighter, yeah. So
Yeah.
hopefully you'll get, there'll be a bit more zany and a bit more, a bit more off the mainstream, and you should be able to tell, but actually it won't be that obvious, but that's good as well. It'll be like subtle changes, and you'll get the feel for that. It's going to be really interesting because what it does is that tells you the story of a career with almost no. You're just going to have to work it out yourself. There's no real explanation, but it still should be obvious. You still should be able to intuit what it means. So it's good. It's good.
I think that's pretty much covered everything we wanted to get our take, isn't it? But
Not really. There's loads to do, but it's a good start because it's interesting.
It's a good. I think it's a good first recording, isn't it? Really, just to have, so you can listen back to it, and Simon's kind of hopefully, possibly, going to write a piece for the website, and but I don't think that's going to happen now. But basically, we're using this as a record.
No, I'm really looking forward to doing the piece for the website, and that's a bit of jokey there because but I am looking forward to doing it, and I will do it. But I'm not sure that I'll use this interview for it.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll just do something else. I'll just do something else. Although interesting, I was thinking, oddly enough, I was thinking about that when we were doing it. I was thinking, so much of the strength is through not explaining. I don't want to lie. I don't want to do too much of the fake mythologizing, which is kind of like rubbish. But I also don't want to get. I don't know, because it's separate. Anyway, we'll sort that'll sort itself out. It's still yet to find. I mean, the way to do that, I guess, is not to give away too much, but to keep it rooted in reality. I don't know. I can think of ways to maybe do if we focus on as if you're there as I'm there at one of the recording sessions, something like that.
Well, you were, weren't you? You were.
I was, yeah.
In living in troubled land.
Yeah, I went to live in troubled land, of course, which is down in the studio.
Studio, 2005.
Yeah.
Simon's been a star for the years. He's sort of supported me all the way.
I've supported him.
It's been an inspiration.
It's getting paid back a bit now, though. To be fair, so it's.
I'll be honest. I've also nicked a lot of your ideas, but we won't go into that.
I was thinking, his shadow songs might take.
The payment will be in the post, Simon. Any day now. Any day it's coming through. The check will be in the post.
But was shadow songs my idea or not?
I think it was, yeah.
Might have been. Sort of title I'd come up with.
Yeah, I think it was, yeah.
And See Through Soul.
See Through Soul.
And Everything Flows. Although that's quite a common title for stuff, but yeah. It's proving big on SoundCloud at the moment. Everything Flows.
They are. 11 people have listened to it.
That's more. It's still.
It's good. It's good.
Still the most listened to one,
good,
isn't it? So you get people getting feedback.
Yeah, this interview is at the time that just released the Crash online, and I haven't done, which is well, it's interesting. I mean, it's interesting. I mean, one of the obvious things is obviously that because it's called Chronology, which is the progression from you go from Beyond Paradise and stuff like that, the early stuff, and then you end up with the something like the Crash, isn't it?
It's not straightforward.
That's the obvious.
It's not a straightforward progression at all. Actually, we should look at that. What we should do is in the next interview. We might do one after we've had something to eat, but we'll do more of these. I'm interested. We don't need to even just always do like chronology. It's quite good to just have the talk. That's the sort of talk we have normally. It's good to get it down because we can find out stuff like what the fuck happened. We're going, oh well, yeah, that happened. It's a surprise. You kind of forget, don't you? You kind of forget the original idea for Above the Taj Mahal, all sorts of stuff. Yeah, but it's really interesting because we can.
Well, it's like that. We could be doing interviews for ages, couldn't we? Just going into each thing and stuff, couldn't we? But it's just what you do. You know?
Well, it's just fun to do. I think it's not bad. If we just go down, relax, have a chat. It's not a bad way to do it. We have a lot of chats. Do a chat that just put some clothes on next time. But I mean, just do it so that we build up a bit of a record so we can go back and go, because now we know, we've got a bit more of an idea.
Well, at least we won't lose this one like the Arsenal time. At least we can listen back to this in like 5-10 years' time.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting. I think this is interesting, but because it's so relaxed, it's not very structured, so we should do some more. But
Hence the previous musical interlude.
Well, I'd be interested in looking at actually just having a list of the album and looking at how things progress. Like that's the thing to actually do, as you just said, Dave.
That's what I mean.
To look at how we go from Beyond Paradise to The Crash, because it's not a straightforward progression by any means.
No.
At times it's a regression, but that's the way it goes. It progresses, it regresses, it evolves. It occasionally there's revolution. Things change, different techniques. That's really interesting. Actually, that's kind of.
Something that did occur to me is the.
That's more what I cover in the piece. Actually, that's really interesting. That bit.
What's that?
Like how like the different evolution, different album styles. I think to me there's some like key albums like
there is an evolution there. There is a it goes forward like one thing leads to another. But I think you're right there. That must happen. That does happen a lot. I think actually looking back, I think.
Well, yeah, I mean it's a classic thing with Dylan where you can see at the time New Morning isn't a great album, but it's been said. He had to sort of do New Morning to add that sort of quality to his voice where you then
get to Planet Waves and Blood on
the Tracks. To Blood on the Tracks, yeah.
Yeah, it's that progression, isn't it?
It's that movement forwards, yeah. So I mean, we'll do that. We'll finish up here now.
Yeah, okay.
And
we'll go and have a meal.
We'll mop up the floor, and then we'll have a meal. But we'll talk later. Record stuff.